All right, welcome back to another episode of the Extreme Lifestyle Living Podcast. Now, before I even get into today's topic, I'm not gonna lie, I'm loving everyone's feedback on the videos because it is a son of a fucking bitch to upload these sometimes. Not that it's relevant, but there's just a lot of extra data that has to go into it because the size of the file, which makes, like I said, no relevancy to any of you guys. But honestly, it's the biggest reason why I didn't do it in the first place. But I just love getting everyone's feedback, people sending me the YouTube videos that I'm putting out. And it's just, it's good. It's just, I love to get the feedback because I just love the impact that it has. Because I genuinely get a lot of fucking fulfillment from doing this. It's like a self-therapy session in itself, and I get to just share my thought processes, things that I'm going on through life, and things I'm working with people in real time. You get to discuss it, and just the impact on it's invaluable. It's a natural motivator for me. But it's March 19th right now when I'm recording this. We're about done the first quarter of the year, and there's a conversation that I feel like is super relevant for everyone right now that has been locked in since the beginning of the year. And I don't really know what the topic of the episode is going to be, but it's about and again, got my paper here because I'm locked in, trying to fucking actually make sure that I take things super, super serious because the feedback is funny. Not that this is relevant either, but it's going to be correlated to the topic. Is the feedback with everything is I get to look at which episodes do better for feedback and impact, and I get to use that data to make sure that I'm doubling down on some of those topics that we're talking about. And 9 times out of 10, when I actually have talking points, the feedback is better from 2 standpoints. One, my energy around the entire topic is a lot more personalized because I have my personality into it, but I'm also a lot more structured, so you guys get a lot more impact and more tactical advice, which I think is a double whammy in my opinion. But it's really about life comes in seasons, comes in waves. And right now we're about to finish our big first wave of the year. And I'm looking at that from a quarterly perspective. There's 4 quarters throughout the course of the year, 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. The first 3 months are just about done. Like I said, it's March 19th right now. And I wanted to talk about the 3 stages of when your life goes in seasons and your life comes in waves. There's always 3 stages of this wave. And the reason why I'm explaining it that way is because if you are actually trying to progress and be a better version of yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it may be, there's going to be seasons of a lot of fucking work. There's going to be a lot of seasons of a lot of fucking overwhelm. There's going to be a lot of seasons of just self-doubt, questioning who you are and digging up things that you may not want to be talking about or, reviewing in your life and reflecting on. But nonetheless, if you're actively or proactively, I should say, trying to become a better version and moving forward each day, whether it's even 1% better each day, you're going to be going through these 3 stages of life from these seasons. Because again, stage number 1 is usually a stage where you're most motivated. You're goal oriented. You have a clear vision. You have a game plan. You know what it is that you need to do to get to where you want to be. Theoretically speaking, using a fitness goal, that stage 1 for a fitness goal is always the motivation to change. You're looking in the mirror. You're realizing you're not where you want to be. You want to challenge yourself. You get the blueprint. Your intentions behind what you want to do are super, super fucking clear. You see everything you want to do. So that's stage number 1. And that's the same as the new year. Everyone was in stage number 1 as soon as the new year started, where they're motivated, they're goal oriented, they're inspired, they have that fire under them, they're ready to put in the work, they're challenging themselves, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go fucking take everything I want and more. And that's the most exciting stage. That's the same as relationships, the honeymoon phase, where everything's exciting, everything's new. It's a new car smell, you get a new car, same thing. Anything that's new, anything that's motivating, anything that is gonna change life for the better and ultimately make you grow as a human being, you're gonna have that natural spark in the beginning. That's stage number 1. I like to say that usually lasts for 3 to 4 weeks, which is why I like to look at the year from a quarterly perspective. So January, that whole month, everybody's on fire. Everybody's showing up. Everyone's boasting about what they're doing and what they're going to do all year and how well they're doing. And they're just trying to prove to themselves and everyone around them that they're doing the work. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what happens is stage 2 comes and then stage 3. And stage 2 is when you got to really start showing up. Prime example with the fitness goals as well. Just because you track your nutrition for 2 to 3, 4 weeks doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get in shape. Go to the gym for 3 or 4 weeks doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get in shape. Start saving money for 3 or 4 weeks. You're not out of debt. You don't have a shit ton of money. You're not going to get more education in 4 weeks. Maybe some certificates, different conversation. But nonetheless, it's not enough time in the actual arena to see the change. So stage number 2 is when you really got to start doing the work. You got to start being consistent. You start seeing a little bit of success, but you're not seeing enough success that's life changing. So you're not really as motivated in the beginning. Maybe you lost 3 to 5 pounds the first month, and now the next month a little bit harder. But this is when you're working out. This is when you're tracking your food. This is when you're reading, you're writing, you're doing all of the things on paper that are going to give you this win. And stage number 2, depending on how deep you're taking your goals, and I'll give you some examples. That could be 4 weeks, that could be 6 weeks, that could be 4 or 5 months in itself. It really just depends on how many goals you have. If it's your first year ever taking your life super serious, and what I mean by serious, I don't want to say like, you're not taking your life serious if you're not like, being the authority and taking charge in all these areas. But when you really, really look at your life from a lens of like, I'm in control of everything, my finances, my emotions, my moods, my physicality, and everything in between, it's a different level of commitment you're taking. You're not selling your soul for anything short other than what you think you deserve, and you're willing to go for it. So the reason why I'm saying it that way, and again, it's not to shy away from the value of going after fitness goals, but getting in shape is one thing, losing fat is one thing, but to advance your career is another thing. To advance your emotional intelligence and your emotional state to help with, articulating your emotions inward for yourself so you feel more peace and fulfillment inside, to be able to articulate yourself with your partner, your friends, your family, relationships to be better. That's a fucking whole other thing in itself. And then if you have any other traumas, like what if you're dealing with, for me personally, I struggle with the same things of like growing up with trauma with foster care, mom lived a certain way, dad never met him, things like that. I know some people go through grief, bad breakups, like there's all kinds of different things, and I don't want to shy away saying that if you look in the mirror, you're upset and just tacking your fitness goals is one thing, but some of us are super ambitious. I know when I started, it was an accumulation of everything. I wanted to change my career, so I took over mentorships and took over a bunch of certificates. That was one avenue in my life. I was doing an intense rehab process and protocols with my personal trainer that I still work with, that I've been working with since 2018 for these rehab protocols, so super into that. I was also trying to work really well at work to progress in that actual job I had before actually leaving. And all on top of that, I was trying to be a better person for myself and, my relationships, everyone around me. So I was doing a little bit of everything at once. So the reason why I say it that way is because the consistent work in stage 2 is when you guys start to do as much as you can with as much information as you have. And I like to just use the example for the fitness goals because it could be a fucking 3-hour long episode of a podcast. So I start breaking down, your mental work, your emotional work, your spiritual work, your career work, your milestones, all these things. So I'm going to relate it just to fitness. But usually with the fitness, stage 2 usually lasts, again, it depends on how big your fitness goals are and how adherent you are to the protocols, but usually 4 to 6 weeks, you really lock in on, doing your meal prep. You're really locking in going to the gym consistently, and you're really locking in and just your boundaries to protect that space, saying no to so many different events. That's why, statistically speaking, February 14th, kind of like the Valentine's Day area, 6 weeks since the year started. That's the second big drop-off rate for people taking their goals serious. 3-4 weeks is the first big drop-off, and then it's around the 6-week marker. So usually that is part of stage 4, when you got to be consistent to push through the kind of boring stages. Because like I said, at this point, you're doing all of the work. You're reading, you're writing, you're protecting your boundaries. You're just saying no to everyone around you. You're saying no to yourself, and you're doing the work that you need to do. And you're seeing some success, but at that point, you haven't seen life-changing success. Let's say you're taking a course for work. You haven't got that promotion yet. You haven't graduated that program yet. You're just still reading all the material. Same on nutrition. You haven't got shredded yet or built a bunch of muscle yet. You're still in the trenches working the metabolism, getting used to meal prep and learning macros and micros and meal plans, everything in between. Same with workouts. You're still progressing. At this point, you would have only done maybe 1 to 2 programs at the beginning of the year. So you still haven't even really did a bunch of strength and conditioning programs and protocols in the gym. So you're still very new into it. So stage 2 is when you start to almost, I don't want to say lose motivation, but that's also where stage 3 comes into play, where you guys start to lose, not lose motivation, but lose clarity as to what you're doing. In the beginning, stage 1, you're super motivated, you're super clear, you know exactly what the intentions and energy is and efforts are for every single action, every single fucking day. As you progress to do the work, there's going to be a part where you start to get conflicted because you are seeing success. You have to reflect on that success and give yourself permission to be happy for that success. But alongside that, you got to look at your life for what it is and still realize you're still not happy with certain things. And that's the dynamic that most people start to burn out. And that's stage 3. Stage 3 is you're overwhelmed, you're burnt out, you're not reflecting as much as you should to be proud of things and, to see where you got to be else and go else in your life. Because the big thing with fitness goals, again, we keep it simple and clear, is around 6 to 8 weeks, most people start to give up on their fitness goals because, like I said, you haven't seen enough success. It's around week 12 to week 14 you really start to see that life-changing success. So that little hump of stage 2 of doing the work, and even though you're not seeing as much return on investment as you want, that's where you got to do the work the most. But again, that leads into you being overwhelmed because you're going to question why you're doing it. It's going to lead into burnout because you're going to be doing meal prep and staying up late and getting up early to go to the gym. You're going to be doing a bunch of these different things that you're not used to doing. You're not accustomed to doing. So it's organic to get overwhelmed. The biggest thing with stage 3 and being overwhelmed, and you start to question yourself, is just making sure I'm like actually articulating the thing I want to hit across right now. But is it because like stage 3 is you're consistently doing the work, you feel better, but you're still not where you want to be at. So you don't know what to do with those emotions. How do you stay committed to a goal that is progressing, but it's only time when you decide to do it? And then that's when you get kind of, again, you got to be able to reflect. Stage 3, you're either going to fold to the overwhelm, fold to the burnout, or you're going to really learn how to nurture your soul, nurture yourself, and reflect and understand what you got to do to go forward. Because at the end of the day, no one changes their life within 4 to 8 weeks. That kickstarts a lot of people. But if you want to change your emotional state, you want to make more money, get a better career, you want to get better relationships, it takes years to do these things. It takes months to build foundations. It takes years to implement them in your life. It takes like a ton of fucking time. And that's why stage 2, when you're showing up and seeing a little bit of results leading into a little bit of burnout, it's super important for you to realize that burnout and overwhelm is a healthy sign that you're working and you're ambitious and you're trying to show up, but you can't let it fold to you. I get overwhelmed all the time. That's why I look at it at quarters, because usually stage 3 is usually the third month. So if you can look at your years in quarters, you can almost anticipate at least once a quarter, you're probably going to get a little bit overwhelmed, where you need a vacation, you need to take time off. And that's what I mean about life comes in seasons. There's seasons of being motivated, showing up, doing more work than you can fucking even imagine is possible. Then there's seasons of enjoying that work, because you can't fucking be 10 out of 10 every single day. And then there's those seasons of reflecting on that work and really figuring out what else is next. Because without the reflection process, without the burnout process, without that overwhelm process, you're never going to find your ceiling. And that's the most important part that I love about this whole concept of being ambitious and taking advantage of your life, is because it comes in waves, and you're not going to feel 100% motivated all the time. There's going to be times when you fucking feel like ass and you hate doing shit. Even like, doesn't matter how small it is, like nutrition, you're not going to be happy to do meal prep every single fucking time. Like I've been doing meal prep, counting my macros on and off literally since I was 21, going on 10 years. And I still get stressed about it, because it's just something that isn't annoying. It's like I always relate it to getting gas for your car. It just is what it is. You're going to have days you don't mind getting it. There's going to be days you don't want to fucking do it. But the big thing with getting overwhelmed is that you got to learn to have a healthy relationship with yourself, to realize that is your ceiling. And once you find your ceiling for how hard you can go in the gym, how much education and adherence you can do to nutrition protocols and saying no to everything around you, and then don't even get me started on the whole like emotional intelligence, your self-actualization, your careers, and like what you want to do for fulfillment and being happy with your life. Because that right there, like when you find your ceiling as to what you're capable of for those things, that's when you really start to do that deep and emotional work as to what actually you need in life and what you value and what you want. And the reason why that's so important is because once you reflect and review the overwhelm, review why you got burnt out, review your processes, your day-to-day activities, your algorithms that you're following each day to, hit your nutrition, to hit your workouts, to keep your boundaries strong and build that life, you're going to find clarity every single time you burn out as to what got to get better, what got to get systemized, who got to get dropped off in my life, what do I got to do better for myself. And that's that repetitive process as to how you continue to grow. You don't just sit there and say, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life and just walk into it. You don't sit there and say, I'm going to have a better relationship with people around me, or I'm going to be in a better relationship with myself, or whatever that relationship may be with whoever it may be. And it happens miraculously. Like it has to be done through effort and intention every single day on your end to be able to be in those positions to take advantage of those opportunities. And it doesn't happen overnight. And there's going to be trials and tribulations. There's going to be good days and bad days. But I can promise you, if you can understand that life comes in seasons, it will always be better, because you're meant to feel like shit some days and you're meant to feel great on other days. Life is all about being consistent. That's why the whole concept of not winning every day is about winning more often than losing, because then throughout the course of the year, you can look back and understand you did most of it. And if you can stay strong through those really troubling times with a lot of overwhelm, you can push past barriers you never even understood was real. And that's when you start to unlock new levels of life and really get selfish and arrogant. I don't want to say arrogant, but you stay selfish with your time, because you realize how capable you are. And when you're willing to reflect on what you're not doing well enough in your life with the stress, and being proud of the growth you do have alongside wanting more. And I know that may sound complex, but once you can kind of get in that fine groove, the world is literally yours. And it's literally that simple. It's just really hard navigating it when your emotional state is so high, when you're so stressed and so overwhelmed. But if you can find those subtle shifts and continue to stay forward and continue to move forward and continue to stay consistent, you will be absolutely amazed as to how fast your life can change in such a short fucking time. So those are my 3 stages on overwhelm in life. I think the big thing, like I said, is hitting that overwhelm stage and ceiling is good, because you're maximizing your output. That's what you want to be. You don't want to be, never knowing if you've pushed yourself to the brink of, how far you go actually like push and do the work. So doing that is super, super good. But again, you can't let that be the reason why you fold and then don't continue to see success. Within that overwhelm of stress is a lot of positivity if you can reflect and be proud of the work you've done for attempting it. That takes a lot of courage. But then also look at it through a lens of what can I do proactively to get better for myself. And there's going to be a lot of clarity in there if you can be honest with yourself and actually embrace those emotions, But other than that, appreciate you guys all. Let's continue to do what we do best, which is lead from the front inside the standard. And if you ever need anything, you always know, reach out. Let's fucking go.